The CuraSim Truck Simulator Box V2, a fantastic accessory that I have been using this in videos as of late, and in this video I'm going to talk about my experience using this button box and tell you everything you need to know about this accessory. Hello, my name is Prime, and today I have the pleasure of reviewing the CuraSim Controls Truck Sim Panel V2, also known as a button box accessory that is made for American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator 2. CuraSim Controls was kind enough to send me out a pre-release version of this updated Truck Sim panel, and it has been a welcomed addition to my setup. And in fact, as of recording this video, this control panel is available for order on the CuraSim Controls website. It is just over $200 US and is available in a number of high quality finishes, and my model happens to be the carbon fiber vinyl finish, which looks really sharp. So I will have the link for this product and the CuraSim Controls website at the top of the description, so feel free to check out the product if you're interested. I have been using this button box now for roughly a month, and over that time I've been able to customize it quite a bit to some of my liking, and at the same time it now gives me the opportunity to give you my honest thoughts on the box after using it for some time. So in this review video, I'm going to start by talking about the button box itself, what are the new features for version 2, and overall what does this button box bring. I will go into the very simple setup of the device for ATS and ETS2, and then at the end of the video I will give you my thoughts and opinions on this Truck Sim panel. I will have chapters enabled on this video, so if you want to skip ahead to a particular section, feel free to do so. Alright, so starting off with the button box, and in particular, what are all these buttons? Well, I am happy to say that this control box has a bunch of different button types, including two very mini momentary push buttons that are on the left hand side and also towards the right hand side. It has 5 spring switches that go up and down. I will show you what I use this for later in the video. There are 7 push buttons that have fully customizable lights, and to customize them there is a knob on the left hand side of the unit allowing you to twist to change the brightness and color hue, and by pressing change the complete color itself. The customizable RGB buttons with the ability to save presets is something that is brand new here for version 2 and adds a nice little touch if you ask me. There are 2 push-pull buttons that happen to be the parking brake and trailer brake. There are 4 rotary controllers located along the button box, an updated ignition switch that features an auxiliary on and a full start, and then at the bottom there are 2 standard latching switches available for use as well. In terms of mounting this button box, on the back side of the device, it is equipped with a VESA 100x100 mounting system that uses the standard M4 hardware. There is a custom table mount included with this button box accessory, and at least for my unit, it came pre-attached to the button box using said VESA mounting system. In full transparency, as a temporary measure, I am using the included table mount for this device. However, in the coming few weeks, I will be using a VESA arm to better position it around my setup. This is mostly to do with my own preferences, however, I will touch on this a little bit later in the video. Additionally, if you'd like to change the USB cable or switch sides that it comes out of the device, you can easily do so by opening up the device via the screws at the back and swapping the USB cable out and or the side that the cable comes out, as there are 2 pre-drilled holes on the side of the box for you to choose from. Moving on to the device setup, it was incredibly easy to get this CuraSim controller set up and running, as it is completely controlled / powered via one USB cable, and in terms of setting it up within ATS, ETS2, and other simulation games alike, it is, at least in my opinion, very easy to get set up, and I did not encounter any issues. You must make sure the device is plugged into a USB port. You then want to come into settings and down to the controls tab of ATS and or ETS2, and ensure that the controller is listed here among your other controls. If you're using a keyboard, it should just say keyboard. For me, I'm using a wheel as well, that's why it says Logitech G29, and then I have the CuraSim controller listed here as well. It just means that ATS and ETS2 could read the inputs from the device, so once you've verified that this is here and or added it in, you can come down to the keys and buttons tab, and this is where the beauty of the device comes in, because it has so many buttons and controls on it, allowing you to fill out a number of these fields here. And in fact, at least as of recording this video, I have not even filled out every button on this button box, as I am still migrating controls from what I've always done on my wheel and other controls to the button box. And to be honest, the reason why I haven't done it completely is because it's been a work in progress the entire time. I've changed my mind on certain button configurations, but I am very happy to finally have the flexibility to choose what I want each button to do. However, on this device, there are a couple buttons that are more specific for the games. That is quite obviously the parking brake, the trailer brake, and the ignition. Although you can use these for other functions as well, and even in other games. Ultimately, here in ATS and ETS2, in most games, you want to make sure your parking brake, trailer brake, and ignition are set to those fields in ATS, ETS2, and so on. So, for example, to set up the parking brake, you must use both the primary and secondary button function fields, as the parking brake functions in 2 directions, pushing in and pulling out. Each of those directions, same with the trailer brake, register as a different button input within ATS and ETS2. So what I would recommend when setting the parking brake, push it in and then go to the primary, click on it and pull out and then push in once again, so then it doesn't become a hold function. And then to set the secondary, pull it out once again before you select the secondary, click on the secondary, push it in, pull back out. Now you have your button set. This applies to the trailer brake as well. And then moving up to the ignition. First, I would recommend doing the start stop electricity. So click on the button and then move over one click of the device. And then to do the standard start stop, make sure it is in the auxiliary section of the key. Click on ATS, move it over to the start and let go. The key function is spring loaded. So then everything you do, one notch to the auxiliary, spring to start, it'll turn over, you let go. It is then in run position and then you can turn it off by going one tick to the left. So besides those more custom buttons, the other controls are very simple. They are simple buttons or toggles. All these other buttons and toggles on this button box will work for nearly every setting, so it's hard for me to recommend which should be used for what, as everyone, including myself, will have their own preference on what should be used for what setting within ATS and ETS2. So although your preference may vary, arguably the thing that has made my life so much easier revolves around the suspension lift and lower system. So for that, I am using the first two toggles to the right hand side. The small little button is the suspension reset, and then the first button does the front suspension, moving up and then pushing down. The next one over does the rear suspension, pushing up and pushing down respectively. The nice thing with these spring-loaded levers is that you can press and hold up for as long as you want, and then also same press and hold down. And then it automatically centers and turns off when it returns to the normal position. This is why I find it very handy for the suspension fields instead of using random key combinations on the keyboard and steering wheel. This alone has made my life so much easier. Now, throughout this video, you have been seeing me kind of demo this device here in ATS and ETS2, and although it is technically designed around it being a truck sim panel for ATS and ETS2, that doesn't mean that you can't use it in other simulators as well. With all said and done, it is technically still a USB controller, so from what I've tested, most games will recognize it no problem. And now for maybe the most important part of this video, my opinion on this device. And while yes, I was graciously sent this device by CuraSim Controls, I want to make it very clear as a disclaimer that they are not influencing what I say by any ways. This is 100% my opinion on this device. And I can honestly say that this device is incredibly high quality. The metal buttons, the tactile feel of the ignition switch, and even the overall box itself is simple, looks really good, and overall is simply very high quality. Starting from the package itself, even when I picked it up at my local carrier, I was already impressed off of first impressions of the box itself. All custom branding around the outside of the box, and the device was securely packed within it. And then I was greeted with a wonderful custom manual that, although is very simple, it directly reflects how easy it is to use this device. And of course, once I set it up and realized how easy it was to customize and use here within ATS, set a custom color profile, which once again is very easy to do by selecting your color and then pressing and holding on the button on the left hand side, and it will save it. And then even if the device loses power, it will come right back to that save color profile, so you don't have to set it once again. The VESA mounting solution at the very back of the device is also a very big plus for me. So besides the overall quality and usability of the device, the fact that I can put it on a external mount, maybe that's an arm or another bracket, makes fixing it to any form of sim rig or desk very easy. However, this wouldn't be an honest review if I didn't disclose this slight con with this device, and I guess you could say maybe two slight cons, at least in my opinion. The first slight con is that over this past months using the provided bracket, and partly the reason why I'm planning to mount this device via another VESA mount, is that the default bracket that comes with it, over time, when clamped to a desk quite tight, the bottom section of the C-clamp itself starts to warp a bit under the stress of clamping it to the desk. Maybe that's just because I've clamped it too tight, but personally, I don't like my button box to move when I'm trying to pull or push on a parking brake. It's not a major problem, and it could be definitely fixed otherwise without having to change it out. However, for my situation and the fact that I wanted to position it differently within my sim rig, I am simply going to use a different mount using the VESA points and utilize a different mounting solution. And then the other very slight con, and this is honestly a bit of a nitpick, and it's a pro and con at the same time, is that there are no labels along the way. As I mentioned, this is technically a con in terms of a lot of users that I'm sure would just want to use this for ATS and ETS2 and wouldn't mind there being some even stickers included within the packaging to be able to stick onto the device wherever you set the custom controls for. So even some basic labels, for example, lights, high beams, so on, that could be applied to the box per the user discretion would be very nice to have, and at least in my unit is not something that's available. But at the same time, I also appreciate the fact there are no built-on labels that some competitor button boxes do have, because then you are essentially forced to use those particular buttons for those controls, or use them for other controls, ignore the labels, and it could become kind of confusing. And because I'm going to be using this across other games as well, the no label thing for me is actually a plus. So some would say it's a con, some would say it's a pro. When it's all said and done, that is your view and opinion on that matter. Overall, I am very impressed by this CuraSim Controls Truck Sim Panel V2, and although I never got to experience the first version of this control box, I can safely say the changes that came in with V2, that being the updated ignition switch, the brand new adjustable RGB, the updated VESA mounting using standardized hardware and not proprietary solutions, are all very good things about this device, and it all complements the high quality build of this controller through and through. Once again, if you're interested in this control panel, feel free to head over to the CuraSim Controls website to learn a little bit more about the device and check out some of the different finishes that are available. Once again, a huge thank you to CuraSim Controls for sending me over this control panel. It has been a welcomed addition to my setup, and I look forward to integrating it even further into my setup as time goes on. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.